The Stronghold games have been a personal favorite of mine since the first Stronghold released in 2001, although the only two I really ever played were Stronghold and Stronghold Crusader. It's been a while since the last release, back in 2014, so when Stronghold Warlords announced, I kept a close, keen eye on development. With several demos under my belt and now a fairly extensive look into Stronghold Warlords before release, how does it shape up to the rest of the franchise, and is the current model of Warlords still relevant in today's strategy genre? That's what we'll look into in this review today. Let's dive in. Since it's been about 7 years since the last official Stronghold game, not including remasters or HD versions, I wanted to briefly go over exactly what Stronghold Warlords is about. The Stronghold franchise is a castle builder strategy game, where you balance economic systems like food, happiness, and weapon production to directly fuel the construction of your castle and equip your villagers to become different soldiers based on your weapon choices. Stronghold Warlords takes that model to Eastern Asia, where you'll experience a wide array of different culture types, from the Imperial Han to the Mongol Horde, the Vietnamese tribesmen to the Tokugawa shogunate. This range of cultures means a truly vast amount of soldier types you can experience through the 31 campaign missions in multiplayer or skirmish mode, and even in various free build modes. And truly, this is one of Stronghold Warlords' best pieces, just the range of cultures available. Being able to recruit Vietnamese spears for quick troops, or Mongol horse archers, samurai and gunpowder units like the Fire Lancers and the Mortar Cannon are fantastic and allow for a pretty dang variation in strategies, especially in skirmish mode. The campaign does a great job helping you learn the ropes for each culture type as well, which is something I never really experienced in previous Stronghold games, mainly due to the fact there's not a huge presence of multiple cultures before this one. On this front, Warlords brings us something that I haven't personally seen in my time playing the first two games. With the lack of knowledge on the last few titles in mind, another shining area that I noticed even during development was an improvement to the user interface and the user experience side to Stronghold. Anyone who's seen any of my reviews knows I place a huge emphasis on both the UI and the UX of any game, more so a strategy, as it has to be relevant enough for first-time players to grasp a hold easily. The UI is extremely well themed to the game, with icons and buttons both easily distinguishable and again, thematically relevant, even if sometimes a bit outdated. Booting up the game for the first demo immediately brought back memories of my extensive time playing the older titles, so that nostalgia experience I know will bring some people back right off the bat. Firefly did a great job keeping to the Stronghold core while improvising and improving for this later title. It's the UX or user experience that really sucked me in and saw the biggest improvements to me. The expanding resource bar at the bottom did wonders to give me an instant look at my economy and weapon production to see where I could crank production up or scale it back. The ability to toggle specific foods and resources to be consumed for happiness boosts was fantastic, but even more so in that specific area was the breakdown of food production and consumption. Knowing exactly how many more rice farms or tea plantations I needed to keep up with demand is always going to be a huge plus in my book, and will help newer players very easily grasp the mechanics of your economy. Even things like auto-selling or auto-buying resources was a huge help in eliminating micromanagement, so I could focus on more pressing matters like prepping for attacks or dealing with your various warlords. There's a pretty huge amount of kudos in this department from me. Next up is the biggest feature of Stronghold Warlords, the Warlords System. This section will be rather extensive as it's the first crack in the armor that is so far a fairly good castle simulation game. The Warlord System is a unique mechanic that fits historically into the Eastern Asian model, as we've seen with games like Total War 3 Kingdoms. The idea behind it is there are notable leaders throughout the map that are big enough to warrant their own space, men who have carved out a kingdom of their own that are too large to simply brush aside and disregard. These warlords are not necessarily a menace during your campaigns, but rather as neutral factions that need to be conquered in order to serve you. Each warlord is different, providing you with various types of resources or actions that require diplomacy points to request. These can range from simple materials like wood and stone, to weapons, or even allowing you to choose a target in which they will send men to attack. This is a great system on the surface. It allows you to choose which warlords you want to focus on conquering depending on your playstyle. Gain diplomacy points fast enough, and you could regularly request goods from a few warlords at a time, which can honestly go away towards fueling your economy. The first big negatives for me is the inability to build on conquered warlords and the lack of a warlord economy. The warlords in the campaign cannot build defenses, at least not until the later campaigns, so your lack of being able to build defenses of your own is doubly frustrating. And in skirmish modes, the castles they do build are so small that a small invading army can easily break through. I want the ability to at least build my own walls and towers around them to better protect them, although I imagine that would make the warlords nearly impossible to kill. The lack of a warlord's own economy also means that they themselves don't expand or build up, making them only useful for the resources they give. I found myself only focusing on the warlords that give me armies to attack for this reason, since I rarely needed other resources in my time playing. An army to attack is worth loads more than some rice or wood that I can produce easily enough within my own economy. Next, there are two ways to conquer a warlord in this game, and this is where we start to see another small crack in the system. There's the more traditional way of simply sending troops to whittle down the warlord's help until he literally bends the knee, at which point he's yours. This does mean that should an enemy faction come in and do the same thing, his allegiance switches, forcing you to keep some decent troops in his castle at all times. That part I have no issues with. It's the other option I have a beef against, the diplomatic path. With the Diplo way, you can steadily increase a warlord's opinion of you by feeding them diplomacy points. Once it hits a certain point, you can force him to declare allegiance to you. Seems pretty cool, right? It is indeed, with a pretty huge exception. So can everyone else. The problem here is that once you win over a warlord by either means, they are immediately up for grabs by any other faction on the map. It doesn't matter if you've just conquered a warlord by sending your troops in, it's very possible that a few minutes later, another player or AI faction uses their diplomatic points to peacefully force their allegiance, meaning that the warlord you just conquered is quickly your enemy, removing your ability to use their special abilities. Take this method of constantly having to secure a warlord, put 5 warlords on an 8-player skirmish map, and watch hell unfold. Not only was I having to constantly make sure I had enough troops to repel other armies, I had to make sure that I had enough elite troops by the warlord I just conquered, so every time the AI bought that warlord out, I could kill him quickly and make them mine again. Then take the audio triggers from anyone conquering a warlord or losing a warlord.
Peasants needed, Highness.
I serve a new master.
This building is inaccessible, Highness.
And having one stolen from you, and the skirmish game I played was so incredibly annoying, I turned off all audio except the music, just to have some semblance of peace. I love the idea of a Warlords system, and after playing all the demos, I was very excited to see the full system in place. What we got though was something that had potential, but felt lacking to me in a handful of ways. It's very fixable. Let the player build defenses only within their conquered warlord's lands, and or set a cooldown timer for a newly conquered warlord, where no matter what, they can't be won over by diplomacy for something like, I don't know, 10 minutes. It pushes players to conquer fast, since they know they can't constantly win a warlord over peacefully. Be interested to see what others think on this subject when the game releases. It's hard to ignore other issues that popped up, and I only want to mention a few as I never enjoy harping on negatives. The first is buggy behavior, primarily in skirmish play. I didn't have huge issues with pathfinding, but it did occur. I had a handful of problems with getting large numbers of troops through gates. They seem to get stuck more often than not. Pathfinding suffered some similar problems. There were some pretty clear avenues for me to move my troops through, but the game thought otherwise. And in skirmish mode especially, I saw at least 3 full crashes and several points where the game froze for reasons unknown. Multiplayer was the reason the game was pushed back, after all, and it doesn't seem entirely fixed. Balance is another issue in a weird way. With the game focusing on several different eras all at once, unit balance becomes an issue. Having Vietnamese tribesmen is useless in skirmish mode, where gunpowder units and mercenaries rule the battlefield. Mercenary horse archers get slaughtered and are not worth the investment when a fire arrow cart can take out a group of them with a single volley. Outside of any type of roleplay scenario, I can't see how older era units will ever be used when given the choice to move on to something much more efficient, which I can see as a pretty big issue when it comes to, again, the multiplayer aspect of the game. One of the bigger issues I had, though, is something that I haven't had to address yet in any review I've ever done, and I'll give you a few snippets for reference.
We only have a short time to prepare. If not handled carefully.
Name the target! Fine! On your command!
While the culture representation in regards to troop variation and AI personality differences are a great update to the model of Stronghold Warlords, the representation through its voice acting seems like they're from a different time, where cultural awareness in gaming was not strongly taken into consideration, and it feels a bit questionable at best. While no doubt taking some inspirations from previous titles with exaggerated accents and meme-style one-liners with troops, at points in my time playing, it was just straight cringy, and in my opinion, sometimes just downright disrespectful. This may not be a huge deal for some, but it did take away from the experience and only further seemed to confirm my thoughts of the next section in this review. Also, a quick little jab for the super generic voice acting on the warlords themselves.
I serve a new master.
There's no flavor to them at all, making them almost as cringy in a polar opposite way as the overly emphatic accents already in the game. Everything up to this point has been focused on the new aspects of Stronghold, and indeed these new things are decently big. But there's a feeling I got when playing this that I just could not shake, and it got a bit worse the more that I played it. Outside of the different cultures or the Warlord system, this feels like the exact same Stronghold game I played back in 2001. I'd even go so far to say that it is the same Stronghold game, just in a different decade. Aside from gunpowder, you harvest all the exact same resources: wood, stone, and iron. Foods are just on smaller plots to fit the smaller build areas of your castles in campaign mode, but have the same effect. You can build various structures to influence the same fear and happiness factors. Sure, there are other production lines that are in place now like silk and tea, but they are all the same system with one single goal in mind: to increase happiness, to increase taxes, and bring money in just to fuel the cogs of war. It's a very simple system that's very easy to comprehend and use to always defeat an enemy regardless of difficulty. There was little adaptation in my economic makeup across my entire time playing, and I think that's a problem considering the new mechanics and cultures in the game. I guess what I was hoping for with this game was something innovative enough that progressed the core ideals of the Stronghold franchise into current times. The systems in place now are not at all different from the very first game, and I wanted some aspect of it to radically change that brought it into the 2020s of strategy gaming in ways that Paradox has evolved its grand strategy, or how a game like City Skylines shook up the definition of a city builder. The old school golden age of strategy builders was fantastic, and I loved them to death, but that same system does not have the grab and attention that they used to. There's an evolution that needed to happen, but I didn't get that with Stronghold Warlords. With all of this in mind, it might be easy to decipher my thoughts on whether or not you should buy this game, or even if I enjoyed it. And this is where I'll trip some people up, as you're going to get a very mixed message from me. Stronghold Warlords is a fun game. I honestly really enjoyed the campaigns, even if they were easy to crank through on hard difficulty. It was fun to play with all the different cultures and units to find ways of defeating the AI within the limitations of the campaign. The addition of gunpowder units added a deal of interesting gameplay, and the basics of the Warlord system was a nice step in the right direction. And I will probably keep playing this game until I finish the campaigns, even live stream it for some live content because I do like playing it. But I really think I enjoyed it because it reminded me of the original Stronghold games, and that has big positives and big negatives. Positives in the fact that the older generation of gamers like myself that played the first two as a kid will feel right at home playing this game and will be able to just jump right in without having to really learn anything new to get ahead. And if Firefly created Stronghold Warlords as a callback to really focus on that nostalgia, then this game is very well crafted indeed. I have a feeling that they didn't though. It seems like Firefly really wanted to create a Stronghold game in a period where the Asian market is very strong in the gaming world, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a very smart business move, and countless other developers like Total War and even Paradox have done the same. However, times have changed in the strategy world, and the lack of evolution in game mechanics with Stronghold Warlords makes it a dated game right off the bat, and I'm afraid that will be lost after a short time playing for today's fanbase that desires a bit more depth and strategy involved. That'll be all for my review on Stronghold Warlords. Let me know what your thoughts are on the game by leaving a comment down below. For those interested, I will be streaming the campaign on Twitch for a bit on release day, Tuesday, March 9th, so you can get a live gaming idea on whether to purchase it or not. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, as many more reviews are in the works currently and for the future. No matter your opinion on the game, be sure to give the video a thumbs up or a thumbs down so this review gets seen by more and more people. It's a great way to support this channel with a very simple interaction. Thank you all very much for watching. This is Havoc, and I will see you in the next video.